Hi, I'm Mermaid Shelly, and I am doing a little video tutorial on how to sew on the big sequins to make your own tail. So the first thing I do is I start out with the pattern of the tail cut out in the neoprene. Here's one that's already had one side of it done. You can see I'm leaving a margin on the side so the tail can be sewn together. But when I put on the sequins, I put them on a bare piece like this. This one's just been painted a basic white just to kind of, give it some color. But in this case, I'm just going to be starting out with a machine set up with regular thread. I've got the stitch length to about, between 3 and 4 and a pretty high thread tension level. So what I do is I start out with the sequin, and you want to leave about an inch of space so that when you sew it in, you'll have some space to work with going forward when you put it into the side seam. So what I'm going to do here is just set up one sequin, and you can see there's a little heel bit to it, and then you've got the body of the sequin. So I just start there, and let me go ahead and plug the machine in, so it's going to get a little bit loud. You see, I start sewing right through it, and then I take the next sequin and I slide it in there so that they're heel to heel. So they kind of interlock over each other to make your pattern. So here I'm just going to start with the second sequin here, sewing right through it. And now a third sequin goes on, and a fourth one. You can see it actually goes pretty quickly. The trick is to make sure that you're very patient with it and that you've got, a lot of space to set up so that when you have, large pieces like the full body of the tail, that you've got enough space so that it doesn't drag off the table, because it starts to get pretty weighty as you go on. And like with this big tail, by the time I get to the end of it, it's trying to drag itself off the table, so it'll start to break the thread. So you just have to kind of stop and cut the broken thread and then just, keep going again. So here I've got a few going. I'm going to go ahead and finish up this row, and then I'll start a second color so you can see how that's going to work. So here's almost done with the row. And by sheer force of will, I am sewing these puppies on here. Trick is, since these are going to be done on a side fin, you won't be able to machine sew them on the other side. So this works better on the body of the tail, but if you're doing side fins, you can pretty much count on having to hand sew on the second side. That's okay. It goes so fast doing it on the machine that you'll save so much time doing this that second side won't take you as much time at all. So here we go. We've got a whole strip of gold going now. I'm just going to go ahead and grab a second color here. So this tail is for Sora the Dancing Mermaid, who's famous for her leopard print. So I want to keep her color scheme and her design going. So this next bit, I'm just going to start with the green one, and then I'm going to put on another green one. I think most people don't have holes in their fins like she does, so there's places where I have to break the pattern and then go back in with another color. Okay, so here is a couple of rows done, so you kind of get the idea, and you see how the way they kind of overlap with each other, and it still gives you this neat effect of all being interlocked. So the trick is, when you go and sew, on a whole tail like this, is to really lay out your pattern, and think about it before you start sewing, because obviously if you just start going with any old random colors and then you don't like it, it's going to be a lot of work to cut them off. And once you've kind of poked holes in the sequins, you could, pretty much compromise the integrity of the sequin and wind up, cracking it through. So if you can just keep them all, in one discrete pattern, then the better luck you're going to have. when it comes to putting the two sides together, it's important to have this bit so that you've got a seam margin to be able to do so. So when you put the two sides together, you know, you'll put them in so that they're facing each other, so it'll effectively be inside out. So here's one side of the tail that's been completed. In this case, Sora wants to have the entire dorsal fin sequined, so this might not be something that you would want to attempt perhaps for a beginner, because it is pretty tricky to do. Yeah, I have a zipper in here, and what I did is I actually sewed together the body to the dorsal fin and the zipper inside before I started sequining it. Then I had this nice substrate to work from, and I could go right up to those margins, which was really neat. Since I've got a little edge here, what I would do once I've got both sides together, is I'll put it like this, inside out, so both pieces are facing. And then we're going to sew using that edge all the way up the body. And then when that gets done, of course we're going to trim off all this string and good stuff. Then hopefully you'll be able to feel through here where the sequins are. So you just don't want to sew through them, because then it'll make it, a really sharp edge and make your sequins hang out kind of funny. So here's one that's completed. In this case, when I got to the very end piece, and I had a little bit that needed to be filled in on that gap, I could use the machine and actually put sequins on to kind of fill the gap so that there looks like it's effectively a seamless tail, which is pretty neat. And here's where I didn't sequin the dorsal fin, obviously. And then you would just take your monofin and put that in the fluke, however you would like to. In this case, I didn't sequin most of the fluke, just because to me personally scales are just on the body. I don't think they go on the fluke, but that's just my personal preference. And then I put in my monofin, and in my case I used silicone on the inside to secure it in and give it some texture. Then once that's done, you're pretty much ready for swimming. But it doesn't take that long. And if this little singer can handle it and I can do it, I know you can too. So don't be afraid to try it yourself. I think it can be a really fun project, and I think it comes out with a really neat effect. It looks actually like real fish scales, and depending on your color pattern, you could come up with, pretty much infinite possibilities, and really have something that's unique and completely your own. So let me know if you have any questions. I think it could be a fun project. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.